Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Tyree from On the Hot Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys. The bonus content we'll be covering today will be in the world of wrestling. In today's bonus segment, I'll be sharing my WCW Mount Rushmore list. So these are the following four names I do believe deserve to be on my WCW Mount Rushmore list. So these four people are on my WCW Mount Rushmore list. Starting off with the legend, the icon, the Hall of Famer, Sting, was the franchise player of WCW, arguably the biggest face that WCW has ever had in the company's history. I have to have Sting on my Mount Rushmore list. Hollywood Hulk Hogan is also on my list. The hero of the 80s, the American hero of the 80s in WWE, having the balls, the cojones to jump ship to WCW in the 90s to form NWO, one of the greatest heel factions in wrestling history. Hell, one of the biggest factions in wrestling history. And Hulk Hogan became an absolute star in WCW. I have to put him on my list as well. Booker T, the five-time WCW World Champion, has to be a part of my Mount Rushmore list for everything that he's done as well. And the mastermind, Eric Bischoff, takes the last spot on my WCW Mount Rushmore list. He was the guy that was responsible for WCW success, along with several others, but he was the man that had the balls to go head-to-head, toe-to-toe with WWF at the time, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, on the Monday Night Wars on a weekly basis in the 90s on a weekly television basis. So those four guys are on my WCW Mount Rushmore list. Let's go into a deeper dive on why I have them on my WCW Mount Rushmore list. So starting off with Sting. Sting is the only wrestler that as far as I know, I might be wrong, is he's the only wrestler that has competed in WCW, TNA, WWE, and AEW. But his best run of his career came in his days that he spent with World Championship Wrestling in WCW. And Sting had incredible feuds with the likes of the NWO. He had incredible feuds with the Nature Boy Ric Flair. He had incredible feuds with Lex Luger. He had incredible feuds with Vader. He had incredible feuds with Cactus Jack. He had incredible feuds with the Four Horsemen. I keep going on and on of the great things that Sting did with WCW, which has landed him to be on this list because his run in WCW put him in the conversation for being one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And especially in the 90s, Sting, what he did for WCW was special. He was a multi-time world champion with WCW. He's never been so over or so popular in his days with WCW. And he's done some great things with TNA, of course, and the smart booking of his run in AEW. Kind of forgettable run in WWE. Let's just call a spade a spade. But what Sting did with WCW earned him a spot on my Mount Rushmore list for sure. Now let's talk about Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan's on my Mount Rushmore list because he had the balls, the cojones, the jump ship from WWE. He was WWE's biggest toy. No diddy. He was their most popular star. He was the franchise player of the WWF in the 80s, the American hero. Everybody loved Hulk Hogan. And of course, we know that big power slam of Andre the Giant, which really solidified his legacy forever in wrestling. But when he jumped ship from WWE to WCW, and his pure entertainment heel run of Hollywood Hulk Hogan, being with the NWO, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, created one of the greatest factions in wrestling history. I mean, they were so popular, so over as heels, and for WCW. It was pure entertainment what they did over in WCW. And the fact that he wanted different things and a different look at wrestling, and the fact that he made it work in a different company speaks volumes. And he was very successful at what he did. So he has to be on my Mount Rushmore list as well. Booker T is on my list because, let's be obvious, like I said, the five-time WCW heavyweight champion had an incredible run with WCW. And also, let's talk about the days before he became a main event star in WCW. The Harlem Heat, the tag team that he had with his brother Stevie Ray, were one of the greatest tag teams that WCW ever saw. And it obviously in the conversation for one of the greatest tag teams in wrestling history. I mean, don't get me wrong, Booker T was really good in WCW. And his transition to the WWE was really good once the McMahons bought WCW from Ted Turner. But the fact that Booker T was one of the last final stars in WCW, I mean, fans looking back at, I mean, of course, I'm a youngster, so I wasn't watching live like a lot of my older audience was. But as I digress, looking back at the tape, it seemed like WCW, when they were losing their flavor, fans were eager for new stars to be born. Like over in WWF, when the new stars like Stone Cold, Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and several others, new stars being created, WCW would really like to lean towards their veteran guys, and there wasn't really new stars being born. But Booker T was one of the final stars in the company's history, and before, I mean, obviously we know how the WCW title was transitioned to the World Heavyweight Championship, and the rest is history. But Booker T was actually the final WCW World Champion before WWE was before WCW was bought out by WWE. So he was the final face of the company with the big goal, the big world title. And I just feel like if Booker T had more time, maybe he would have been a bigger star in WCW. But the fact that you were a 5-time world champion already speaks volumes. But maybe he could have been like the franchise guy for a long, long time moving forward if WCW was never bought out by WWE. But last but not least, Eric Bischoff is on my list. I mean, you could put together a lot of different people that get the fourth and final spot. Obviously, I have to put Eric Bischoff here because he deserved a lot of credit for a lot of the booking decisions that WCW had. The good things that WCW had going head-to-head against Vince McMahon in the Monday Night Raw Wars. I mean, that was, even though he was winning battles but lost the war. The TV ratings it was at a point where WCW was about to put WWF out of business. And a lot of that, for their success on a weekly basis every Monday night, was due to the fact that Eric Bischoff was the mastermind, along with several others, the reason why WCW was so successful. And I feel like at that time, WCW was great in its own way. I mean, they had the Cruiserweight division, the World Championship scene, the Tag Team division, the badass heels. They had everything that you wanted. And I don't think how the world of wrestling is going, we will ever see another true threat to WWE ever again. A lot of you AEW marks can say that AEW is WWE's biggest competition. And yes, I know there's New Japan Pro Wrestling. Bottom line is there will never be another threat to the WWE ever again in terms of being the #1 wrestling company. Ever. It's just facts. And nothing that anybody can do, you just can't do anything about it. WWE is a powerhouse that will never be tested and never be so never been so bad, never be so tested ever again in the world of wrestling. The fact that they were nearly taken out of business by Eric Bischoff, Ted Turner's WCW speaks volumes. Because that has to go down. And what if WCW won the Monday Night War the war? What if it was WCW that bought out WWF? How would the landscape of wrestling really look today? That has to go down as a big one in wrestling history. But as I digress, those 4 respected people have to be on my WCW Mount Rushmore list. And that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.